Let's bring in Rob Rossi, senior hockey writer with The Athletic, based in Pittsburgh, to tell me if, in fact, Kyle Dubas has a plan B in the state of Pennsylvania.
Well, I think he was always the Penguins' plan A, and then that got derailed a bit by the Maple Leafs winning a round. And then when the Maple Leafs didn't win a round and the drama in Toronto played out last week, their plan B became their plan A again. And I guess the simplest way of saying this is Kyle Dubas's job if he wants it. They were prepared when they fired Ron Hextall and Brian Burke and made the changeover that if Dubas were available to give him control of hockey ops. They thought extraordinarily highly of him. He meets sort of what FSG, the Fenway Sports Group, has hired in as sort of managers in their other sports teams with the Cubs, with the Red Sox and Liverpool Football Club. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on, and money won't be an issue. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on if, Kyle likes the idea of the job, if his family wants to move to Pittsburgh, and if he wants to work next year.
There was a report today that he was seen with Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh. I'm sure you came across that. Does it sound like he's already there and going through the process of figuring it out?
He is. He is in Pittsburgh, to my knowledge. I don't believe the second part of that is. I don't have knowledge of the second part of that. Let me just say that. But he is in Pittsburgh. He was planning to come here midweek and talk to the Penguins, get a real feel for the organization. Not really surprised by that. It's a pretty short drive from Toronto to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. It's not like he would have had to hop on a plane and go through the airport, go through all that if he didn't want to. And, I think when you're thinking about a life decision like this, if you can get on the ground and, go see the facilities, see the offices, meet the people that you would be working with and for, I'm not surprised by that he's here. And I would imagine Kyle's interviewing the Penguins as much as, if not more, than the Penguins are interviewing him.
We're talking to Rob Rossi, senior hockey writer for The Athletic, based in Pittsburgh. Rob, you have a fantastic piece in The Athletic today. It's titled Chaos, Loathing, and the Big Three, How the Penguins Unraveled. I urge anyone who is subscribing to The Athletic to read it. It gives great detail of the Pittsburgh Penguins season, including re-signing Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and ultimately the demise of Ron Hextall. And, can you speak, Rob, in terms of, based on what I read in your piece, what you would see as the biggest challenge for Kyle Dubas or any other general manager if they started this job with the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words and the plug. Secondly, I think based off the situation in Pittsburgh, the challenge is going to be with not significant cap space and some troublesome contracts. How do you build around this core? What Hextall and Burke got right was sort of building a top six that is bona fide. But after that top six, and Jason Zucker is going to be an unrestricted free agent, but, they're going to have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Gensel, most likely, unless they, for whatever reason, would decide to trade him, coming back. Those are guys that have traditionally produced in the playoffs. To get the Penguins back to the playoffs and to make a run, you're going to have to fill out around them better than the previous regime did. And look, I will say one thing that impresses me about Kyle Dubas, not knowing him personally, but studying him from afar, is those Maple Leafs teams seemed pretty deep. They might have been done in by some lack of scoring or lack of production from their best players in the postseason, but at least through the regular season, those teams seem deep. So I could see why the Penguins would like him for that role.
And so, what's left in that core group? They're obviously elite, Hall of Fame guys. Is there enough in the tank there to build around them, or do they need other, high end guys to help with the production side of things?
I think they could use another defenseman, another top four defenseman, to go with Chris Letang and to go with Marcus Pettersson, who had a really good year. They could use a third line center, a guy that doesn't need to score a whole lot, but can give them minutes and can contribute offensively more than now and then. What they really need is to figure out the goaltending situation. Jim Rutherford's last years here, the previous regime's 2 years here, the goaltending situation just was never fixed. The Penguins have had sub 900 goaltending in each of their past 4 postseasons, and they didn't win a round in either of them. And that, I always say, gentlemen, I don't care how good you are up front or on the back. If your goaltending's not at 900 in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. You don't got a chance. They need to figure out if Tristan Jarry is the guy, and if he isn't, they need to figure out what they're going to do for that position. I suspect the way these playoffs have played out, that they're going to have some real conversations about whether to move forward with Jarry or not, given that he's probably going to get a substantial raise and he was injured last year.
Hey, Rob, so much speculation on whether or not there was interference on Brendan Shanahan's part with Kyle Dubas, or if it was just more president, general manager, day-to-day issues. But in your piece, you do talk a little bit about the Fenway group. And if, in fact, Brendan was the buffer and Kyle never really had to address or deal with the board of directors at MLSE, how do you see that shaping up with the Fenway group? Would they be as hands-off to their general manager, or is there a chance that Kyle may have more dealings with them on a day-to-day basis?
My sense, covering them for a year and a half now, is they feel like hockey really isn't their expertise, and they really want to rely on somebody to be the decision maker. Obviously, ownership's going to have import on the big decisions, and ownership will be one kept abreast of things. But my impression is Fenway wanted to focus on the business side of the Penguins and the development of the land across from PPG Pace Arena, and getting the revenue stream shored up, and the arena modernized and everything, and kind of leave the hockey to the hockey people. So I think whoever's the new GM here is going to have autonomy. Now there may be a position that is created where you have sort of a public mouthpiece, not for the GM, but to do some of the things like meet and greets and, with sponsors and season ticket holders and, appear at the charity events and that. But I've always been under the belief that Fenway wants a general manager that's going to control things, run a very organized club, and maybe not necessarily have to be sort of the public, the guy that does all that other public stuff, and really focuses a lot on hockey.